Well, let's talk about special purpose acquisition vehicles again today. Now, I do have another video where I talk about what these are in general. You can check that out if you follow this link here. Today, I want to talk about SPAC arbitrage. So what is that? Well, as a refresher, SPACs are basically blank check companies. You essentially, give the sponsor $10 in exchange for that $10. You get shares of the SPAC and you get some warrants, which then later enable you to buy more shares at $11.50 typically, right? There's also a yield option, right? So if this thing doesn't work out, you guarantee get at least a T-bill return on your investments, okay? That's basic SPAC information there. So what's arbitrage, okay? The idea is you buy something in one market and you sell it in another. So here's an example. You buy an ice cream cone here at the farm for $1 and you sell it in the city for $5 and you make a $4 gain with that $5 sell. Now, if you look in the news here, they're talking about 3 different arbitrages and I just don't see it here, okay? First off, the idea here is instead of paying that $10, which is the typical, entry fee for this SPAC, you try to do it below NAV. So try to get in less than at $10. So either you somehow magically can do that, or you buy it in the secondary market because someone bought it at 10 and wants to sell it to you at, $9.95 or whatever that is. First one, you're taking the stock part of it and the warrant part of it, and you're splitting that up. At the end, when the deal's announced, again, you could just take the yield, right? When the deal's announced, you can decide, hey, this is a good deal or not, so it's worth that $10 or more, or I take the yield right there. That's the idea. Another arbitrage here is basically do the same thing, but you're kind of ignoring the stock and warrant part here. You don't split those up. And then the third arbitrage given here is that basically the deal fails and you just redeem it for this, this T-bill rate of return. I don't see these as being massively distinct. If you want to read the full article yourself, it's by these guys, Accelerate. It's called The Art of SPAC Arbitrage. And it's whatever. It's a good article, but it's just not that interesting in terms of the arbitrage. In fact, I'm going to argue that this isn't an arbitrage at all. It just isn't, right? So there's no buy it at low price, sell it at high price. This is basically saying, hey, I get in on the deal and I have 2 options essentially, or maybe 3 options, right? You get the yield or you sell the shares at somewhere down the road, right? It's really not an arbitrage. In fact, the only way I can think of this as being kind of an arbitrage is if you are truly just a short-term investor, right? You otherwise would enter into a T-bill arrangement to earn just a tiny little bit of interest. Instead, you say, look, I'm happy with that, but I'm going to buy this SPAC so I'm at least guaranteed that T-bill rate. If I can buy it below NAV, I actually get a little bit more than that T-bill rate. And then the upside is that the SPAC works out really well and I end up getting more than that yield rate. That's the only really kind of arbitrage I see here. If you're already trying to be a T-bill investor, if you're a stock investor, otherwise this isn't an arbitrage. This is not arbitrage. All right. So also just want to mention in general, I have criticisms of SPACs. You can check out a full video on that if you follow this link right here. But in general, when you think about the whole SPAC package, there are the sponsors, there's the investors in the company that they end up buying, and there's also PIPE investors. So out of all of these, as a SPAC investor, you get the raw end of the deal. So that's number one. There's what's called a sponsor promote in there, which is really just some icing on the cake for the sponsors. You as a SPAC investor are essentially eating all of the dilution associated with all these players. And ultimately, even if these go through, these SPACs tend to be much worse than traditional IPOs. So again, you can watch that whole video there. But in general, the SPACs aren't that interesting. No problems, right? Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Brian Kozlowski.